So welcome everyone to the Global Goddess Fest, where men and women are tuning in from around the world to receive education, connect with global leaders, and gain inspiration on living the life of their dreams. So today we have Marci Lock here. Thank you so much for joining.
I'm so excited to be here. My pleasure, love.
Yeah, so just to do a little introduction for you, for all of our viewers to get to know who Marci Lock is. Marci Lock is considered the new age thought leader, mentoring global influencers worldwide, game-changing businesses, and high-producing leaders to live epic, badass lives. And she fully embodies that in her being, so you'll see that today, which is fun. Her specialty and genius is seeking the unseen and how to uncover the hidden little bullshit that weaves throughout our lives, and so that way you can really live your life of badassery. And like really bring it into your daily normal life. This doesn't have to be like, oh, here's my superhero life, and then here's like the shit.
Yeah, right?
So
we are the superheroes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, totally. So some things that Marci Lock has done is she's worked with some of the biggest corporations in the world as her clientele, and she mentors people who pay up to $1 million to work with Marci for 1 year. So we're going to be kind of tapping into, how she was able to really own her power and call that in. She's just super passionate about helping humankind and having them, get to the next levels of remembering who they are, who they want to be, and living the life of a purposeful, awesome life. So she does online coaching products, corporate programs, masterminds, personal coaching, and hands-on experimental events and retreats, which she was just telling me about the one coming up in San Diego. And then she's had appearances on podcasts, books, and television. So just a wide range of awesomeness that you're going to be bringing to the table today. So thanks for being here.
I'm so happy. And I'll say, I met you when I was speaking. You were at an event that I was speaking at, and you were this bright light that came up, and you're like, I'm going to create this. And here it is. It's like, and so I'm so honored to get to witness you actually taking action on your inspirations and creating this beautiful way for people to learn and grow and expand. So I'm super excited to be here, love.
Thank you. Yeah, it was, so we were at this event about a year ago, and Marci got on stage and like immediately was like, so we have no plans and I'm just going to start talking. Is that okay? I was like, yes, because I'm a performer. And so I actually studied in college improvisational dance, and now I'm a musician and I use improv for all my music. So sometimes I'm seeing these speakers and they're like, this is what I need to say and this is the next thing, and then if I forget, I'm sorry, and apologizing. And so I just appreciated that presence that you brought of just like, here, let's go, we're all in this space, what is here that we need to uncover.
Yeah, that's how I operate. And that's, you're talking about like, living the most epic life, right? It's really coming back to the knowing of who you are. And I committed a long time ago to just be an open vessel. And I could tell you a really funny story if you want to hear it, on when like on how it shows up, that it always comes through so much greater and bigger than our human brain would ever plan, because our human brain is like, oh no, I'm afraid I'll be rejected, I'm afraid I won't be enough, what should I do, I'll plan this out. And we're actually like blocking all the availability and what's there for the people that are there. And I'll tell you, girl, it was a couple of years ago, I got asked to speak at this high-level invite-only event. It was like all high-level influencers that are well worldwide known. I was the only female speaker. And the guy, he wanted to do a little podcast interview with me before the speaking event. And he's like, hey, what are you going to talk about? I want to talk about what you're going to talk about so people will know what you're going to talk about at the event. And I was like, I don't know, because this is just how I work. I'm like, I will, it'll come through me. And he's like, well, I want to know about this. We did a little podcast. Comes to the day of the event, or I'll back up just a little bit. I was actually in Utah. I was going to be driving to Utah so I could see my boys, because they're going to be in Utah for the summer. Fly to Colombia for my Badass Breakthrough Adventure Ascension event down in the jungles, doing medicine and journeys and things. Come back and then go to this event. And before I left Utah, I just had this vision of me playing with Nerf guns at this event. And I was like, well, that's interesting. I just saw myself playing with Nerf guns at this event. My house manager, she knows how I operate. So she's like, well, I guess you better pack your Nerf guns, right? So we pack like 30 Nerf guns. I have 30 Nerf guns. That's just how I roll. So we pack my Nerf guns in the car, no attachments and expectations. I go to my Columbia event. I come back to Utah, and first day of the event, it's like a 2 or 3 day event. I'm the last speaker on the last day. First morning of the event, I'm in the gym, and the dude who's over it, the same guy, sees me, and he's like, do you know what you're going to talk about? Like, he's extremely anal and worried. Do you know what you're going to talk about? And I was like, no, but guess what? I said, I did have a vision of me playing with Nerf guns. And he was like, no. He said it probably 20 times, no. And he's like, this is high level influencers. They want a PowerPoint. They want to know how you do what you do. They don't want to mess around. They just want your content. And I was like, that's interesting. Like, again, that's just his perception and projection. I don't have to take it on or attach to it or anything. And I was just like, oh, that's interesting. Every single speaker, my dear, was like, and these are high level, amazing beings too. Everyone sat there with a PowerPoint and did their thing. 2 days later, the only download I'd still received was I saw me playing with Nerf guns, right? So right before the event, I call my sister, I'm like, bring the Nerf guns. And like squishy balls, and just like, that's all I saw. I just had this download of Nerf guns. We'll blindfold everyone, and literally it'll be like, I'll play some music, get them all out, and be like, when the music stops, just take off your blindfold and react to your environment. And it's so funny how this assimilates exactly what I do, because what happens is also people are in the space of reality, like the real self comes out. Like some people are like, oh, that's so unprofessional. And some people are like, yeah. And so it just, everything comes out, right? And so I ended up doing that. I had no idea what was going to come after. And the most amazing things came through. So jumping forward, like a week later, I'm on a international call, and they're like, oh my gosh, we have Marci Lock here. We heard you were at this event, because it's a really like secret society kind of, you have to get into event. They're like, and you played with Nerf guns. How did you think of that strategy? They were like, everybody left there knowing your name. My answer, my dear, was like, God told me to play with Nerf guns. I was like, that was it. And that's the thing about, you and I were talking about how we just allow, right? You know, like even asking me for the podcast, I'm like, I just show up, and whatever you want to ask me, I'm an open book. There's no transparency, nothing to hide, nothing to prove. And that's the same thing with events. I just go there knowing when I allow to come through me whatever is required in the space, the breakthrough and the ability it will for everyone there is so much greater than if I was like, oh, it's a women's event and they want me to talk about manifesting money. Okay, what should I do? I was like, as long as you know anything's going to come out, I'm sure manifesting money is going to come up. Yet, you know, it's, and that's what I think we've lost. You know, it's like we've lost the remembrance of who we are and the gifts that we have that allow us to be such a greater light for everybody involved when we just are true to ourselves.
Definitely.
Little nugget there.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that. The Nerf guns. I would just have like this really amazing image in my mind. It's like, is it okay? Is it okay that I'm doing this? And then I'm sure there's that like breakthrough point where everyone was like, okay, this is happening.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it's interesting. So I'll give you kind of there was another gentleman that I knew that was really good friends with this guy. And when I told him, I was like, yeah, I had this vision playing with Nerf guns. So-and-so told me not to. He's like, do not piss him off. He's such a high level dude. He knows everybody. Do not piss him off. And again, I was like, oh, interesting. Well, long story short, I kind of got banned. Like 2 years later, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be in the place. You know, I could go to the event. And I was like, he wouldn't respond to my message. I was like, I think I got banned, you know, right? And then when it came back around, he actually came to me and said, thank you so much. I realized it was my shit, because the videographer even said, he was like, that was the best video footage I got of the entire event. Everyone else was sitting there with the PowerPoint doing their thing. And he's like, and then there's the Marci Lock shit show of 50 entrepreneurs diving all over the place. You know what I mean? So, I mean, in a way, it's like, there's a lesson in that. Is that like what comes, even though the things in front of you might say, no, don't step outside these boundaries in the comfort zone. And you know, you'll have a better chance if you listen, right? Like I've had so many people for years, darling, be like, if you would just calm down, if you would just not swear, if you just would, you'd have a bigger following. I'm like, well, that's interesting. I attract $500,000 and $1 million deals. And because I'm fully me, I'm fully unapologetically me, people know I'm going to tell them the fucking truth. Versus if I was like, well, let me pretend to be what you want me to be, and I'll track all the little bits here, but then the moment I'm myself, you're all going to run away anyways. So protection is really rejection is really protection, I always say. So it's like, there's that, you actually see that what comes to you, even though on the surface it might look like you're going to get rejected, what comes to you is always leads you to the right path when you actually are being yourself, which you were talking to me about at the beginning. Like how it's just been so easy. You're just following the flow of like what you're called to do, and it's effortless.
Yeah. It's kind of, you can bring in that phrase of like, play now, apologize later, you know? And I think as long as we're staying in our aligned, authentic selves and are like hoping, you know, for the best for everyone, then usually, even if we get this download to like throw glitter at everyone, or like, I was at a conference this weekend and that actually came up.
Surgery. You're like, oh shit.
But it's like, there, you know, that's like that fun, spontaneous play that we all want. And that's like why we watch TV, why we like go outside of ourselves to like put ourselves in these crazy positions. But really, like, how do we could just incorporate that into our everyday life and practice.
Well, play is the big part of flow consciousness. It's part of what I teach my individuals, is how to get into super flow consciousness and like flow and bliss state, which means, of course, it's the old mentality is like, I got to do, go, plan this out, And that's so, like you said, outside of ourselves. It's the human brain and the monkey mind trying to figure it out, instead of actually our feeling body and our center says, ooh, this is what would feel good. And when we actually ask, when we become the purpose, and I think this is such a misperception, as everyone's seeking their purpose. Everyone's like, what's my purpose? How do I, and really that's like the scared little girl or boy inside being like, what do I do so I'm enough? How do I be seen enough? How do I be validated? When if you knew the only purpose that you have is for you to be enjoying happy, like for you to be happy, that's your purpose. Because think about it, we go through all of our shadows and all the triggers and all the human experiences that we contract and we call in and we attract to us, so that we can learn from those experiences and have, being human, we're all things. So we experience all the darkness to find our light. And it's in that beautiful allowance and flow to that we find ourselves being that space, that we tend to be like, I have to be something that's outside me. And you were saying, as you're like, this is what you feel inspired to do, right? That's what feels good. So all of a sudden, what feels good to you becomes the purpose. Because it's like, well, this would feel good. I want you're understanding it and finding that and called to that for yourself. Then that's what comes through you to share as your message. So your message becomes your message, and then it's easy and effortless. But it's so much backwards compared to what society teaches you. It's like the hardest part really is realizing how easy we are designed to have it, and how easy we are designed to create when we're tapped into our divinity.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say then about like, those hardships that we all find ourselves in? A lot of people can say like, oh, you need those hardships to like build up your character. Like, what would you say to that?
Well, I mean, as I mentioned before, we are all things, right? So all things are true. All perceptions are true based on what you're looking for. So it's something I do, and I have a one-day Goddess Empire event, which is like clearing the shit. Because a big thing that we're so stuck in is I think in self-empowerment, we operate very surfacely. Like I call it surface self-empowerment bullshit. Like we're so scratching the surface, and then we're doing all these other things to counteract this thing we're doing on the surface, like speaking out in affirmation or whatnot. So what I mean by that is, most of the time people are trying to, with the hardship, they're either trying to deny it, or they're like a limiting belief comes up, like, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough. And it's like, no, I am enough. But we don't feel it because we have all this evidence of our experiences where we're not enough. Well, what if you actually knew that being not enough was part of your journey? Meaning, like, if not enough allows you to understand what it feels like when you're in your confidence and in your knowing of yourself. And it also gives you compassion of understanding when people are in different places. We wouldn't experience, like, the human experience is to experience all of it. So, I mean, it's the choice though is for people to go, well, I'm going to say that life is hard. So you can have a belief system that life is supposed to be hard and you'll keep attracting it. You can have a belief system that life is supposed to be sacrifice, or it's a process to get to where you want to go, and you'll keep attracting that. The thing is, we've all had our hardships and our experiences, but when you actually learn the truth is you're a divine being. I think I might have shared this with you guys at the event, where it's like, this is how powerful and easily we have the ability to create, because you are 37.2 trillion unique cells. You have your own fingerprints, your own voice box, your own toe prints. just sitting here right now, your perceptions, right? The thoughts that you're having in your head, the perceptions you're having through your eyes, the words that you're speaking, the feelings you're having are creating things. So if someone decides, well, my hardship is now, I mean, of course I want to be like, my hardships, my shit is always where my gifts are, because that's where our core wounds are that we get to get feedback from to decide, ooh, how would I get to operate in more of my divinity to have something greater? So our core wounds become our core strengths. So of course we have hardships, yet to believe that we have hardships or believe that life is hard, that's just choosing your experience of life to be exactly that. And it's actually the opposite. It's like, oh, it's actually, I'm such a divine being sitting here creating, doing absolutely nothing. Because I mean, to this day, sweet, I don't know if I shared with you guys how I still haven't done one paid ad, one target marketing. And yet I have $1 million clients, $500,000 clients, online programs, all these things. And pretty much, it's like it's just because I'm vibrating that it shows up. So I always say that any business strategy will work when you're in the alignment to receive. So when you believe you're worthy, you're being heard and seen to be able to receive, it'll show up. Even if you're not like, okay, I need a website and I need this. So these are some of the bullshit human stories that I talk about with like the unseen, like where we're holding ourselves back unconsciously is because we think it has to look a certain way or it is a certain process, when really that's just a choice or a belief system that we're operating out of unconsciously.
Mm-hmm. So would you say, could you share one of your hardships maybe that were able to find the diamond? And
yeah, I mean, like I literally say I'm really good at calling out the bullshit because I was the bullshitter. Like my life pretty much, I mean, they actually made a documentary of my life because they were like, my life was almost so traumatic that I've been through every single traumatic experience you could imagine, that I'm like, I relate to everyone and I understand and those unconscious perceptions and being in that place. But I mean, I was raised on a farm. And at 4 years old, I really took on that for us to survive. Like we had to grow our own food to survive. I was raised in extreme poverty. I was raised in a religion that was like extremely, don't be heard, don't be seen, only do what God wants you to do. So from the time I was little, I was taught to like really wear the mask, to not be heard, not be seen. Everything had to be perfect. I became, at age 4, I started stressing over my body because I saw my mom not love herself because the body had to look a certain way. So I mean, by 14, I was anorexic and bulimic. I had, a heart attack at 19. I had breast cancer at 24. I healed myself of that just internally. I had countless sicknesses, diseases, like 10 plus friends die, plus my family. My dad passed when I was 15. I mean, it just like rape attempts, stalkers, kidnappers, sexual abuse. I mean, you name it. Pretty much and it all, of course, I see when I was from a young age, built the system and the belief systems of life is struggle. Life is hard. It's sacrifice. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. Don't even speak up. Don't be seen. Don't be heard. All of that. And I mean, from the time I was little, it was like, the world is a scary place. Like the world is a scary place. Watch out for scary people. So of course I attracted stalkers, kidnappers, rape attempts. Of course I attracted health issues. My dad was always sick because he had diabetes and my entire family had sicknesses. So all I knew was you couldn't trust your body. You couldn't trust love. People die. It's conditional. Like God wants you to act a certain way. I mean, it was like extreme shutdown. So it's probably why at one point in my life I was called the Fuck Yes Life Mentor, because when I was actually living in Utah. So I was raised Mormon and LDS. And I was living in Utah and I started being on TV as the Body Mind Mentor. Again, the body was my first dive into like struggling with my body my whole life. When something was like, I like said to me one day, they're like, it's the education in your mind. And I realized it wasn't going to be the next workout program. The next thing I was like, oh, I've always struggled with my body because I've fought myself. And it was like, so how would I get to, what else do I get to try? I realized it was like the definition of insanity to keep doing the same thing everyone else was doing and getting the same result, fighting my body and not loving myself. I was like, I either get to stop bitching about my weight and my body, or I get to learn to love myself being overweight and sluggish and not feeling good. And that's when I started to dive into the understanding and realized it was all an internal game. It's like the only reason I would sabotage my body was because I didn't love myself. Right? I was scared of being attacked and not seen. So even when I first went on TV, it's interesting now to see and understand what I teach is all the connections. So it's like when I first got offered national TV, I woke up one day and my right foot literally wouldn't work. I like couldn't even step on it. And again, right foot is moving forward, the masculine energy, moving forward. It's like fear of moving forward. Now I teach all the connections to what's showing up in your body goes, oh, it's my chest. What am I really sad about? And how we can internally see what's going on versus we have no idea that we're unconsciously operating. And the moment I tuned in, I was like, oh my gosh, me getting on TV, there's the little girl inside is like, no, you're going to be attacked. You're going to be, it's like, and when I saw it, I was like, oh, sweetie, thank you for letting me know you're just trying to keep me safe. That's what we used to do to be safe. We used to hide in the shadows. But now we know the truth is that the more we're seen, the more safe we are, the more angels we attract, the more friends we have. And so it's really, the 5-year-old is running your life. Because it's, you create all of your subconscious is pre 7 years old, and there's no logic and understanding. There's just what I heard, what I felt, what I saw, and then what you decided. So we're running around as adults operating unconsciously based on our programming of pre 7 years old. And so until we learn to see what's unseen, then we just keep attracting the same things, we're in the same frequency and vibration. So yeah, I went through the shitter, which gave me all my gifts, which is awesome. And it's so that's why I say we for me to my whole life to be like, I totally know I'm just as much as I'm a bitch, I'm an angel. I'm all things. And when we can accept that about ourselves, and that's just a part of our human process, there would be nothing for me to hide. And imagine the freedom everyone could feel when there's nothing to prove and nothing to hide. We're just here being ourselves, and we're assisting each other to ascension.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yes. Oh, so what would be some of those tools that people could use to start seeing the unseen?
Well, the first, I'll give you, and actually, you know what? I have an audio series I'm happy to give you for your listeners. They're called the Freedom Audios. And it is based on my 5 steps. Like I have a 5-step tool that's pretty much like the thing I give even my $1 million clients. When everyone first starts working with me, I'm like, every time you feel anything other than awesomeness, you're going to go into these 5 steps. And it's just to then also become clear. So like if you notice, this is the challenge. Most people don't know that they're operating in a program. But when you start to just go, cool, if I'm designed to live an awesome life, I'm a divine miracle. I'm a divine, son and daughter of source, right? So if that's the case, and I'm meant to experience awesomeness as my norm, then the moment you're not in awesomeness or peace or love or joy, this is why I'm like, it can really be so simple. We as human brains, we make it hard. And when we just go, if I'm not feeling awesome and peace and love and joy, I'm going to go, oh, what's going on, right? And go internal. So I actually, one of the things I suggest for people to be really proactive this, a lot of times with even my $1 million clients, I'm like, every hour, set your alarm. And when the alarm goes off, all you're going to do is an internal check-in. You're going to be like, oh, what am I creating right now? Because see, we're operating so unconsciously, we don't even, until the shit shows up, we don't even realize we've created shit, right? So all of a sudden it's like check-in. It's like, oh, what am I creating right now? Well, how do you know what you're creating is you tune into what thoughts you're putting out, what feelings are vibrating from your body, right? Maybe what words you've been using, etc. And so if you're like, oh my gosh, I was totally stressing about, this meeting that I'm going to do, or how I'm going to do this message, or whatever it is, you're like, whoa, you catch yourself. You proactively catch yourself, and then I was creating shit. Okay, got it. If it's for feeling, I teach these, and this will run through all this in the Freedom Audios to give you a little bit more clarity. But it's like if you just even notice what's going on in my body, and you're feeling heaviness in like your stomach, right? So it's like, oh, I'm feeling in my stomach. Stomach usually resembles fear. So it's like, what could I be afraid of? If it's your head, it's like anger. What could I be angry about? And so it's like, oh my God, yeah, somebody said that to me earlier, and it kind of pissed me off. And maybe your pattern is to just suppress it, right? So all of a sudden a physical emotion will show up, and you recognize you have a headache, but you weren't even really paying attention to that. And this becomes your norm because you don't even know what's unconsciously happening. So when you do that, the 5 steps that I recommend I teach people, and it'll walk through this in the Freedom Audio, so give a little bit more clarity, is you simply go, what am I feeling right now? So it's like if you catch yourself in shit, you're like, what am I feeling? Oh, I am feeling angry, or I'm stressed, or I'm overwhelmed, or what is. Why am I feeling that way? And so when it's like, oh, I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed because I didn't realize, like, I'm nervous about putting out this message. Or, the other thing is to catch if you all of a sudden find yourself in a pattern that isn't supporting you. Like, say you're writing your book, and all of a sudden you just get up and you find yourself in the pantry, right? It's like, oh, wait a minute, I was committed to this, and suddenly so that just shows one of your patterns for staying in a comfort zone is distraction. You'll go find yourself looking for food or also checking Facebook. So you're like, wait a minute, that's not what I was committed to. So, whoa, what's going on inside? And all of a sudden it's like, what am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling like a little anxious about writing this. Why? I'm really nervous if I get it done. Like, is it going to be good enough? And we catch all the inner shit that's actually running. Mm-hmm. So when it's, what am I feeling? Why? Then it's, well, what do I want? Right? So we've broken down the story to be like, well, what do I want? Well, what I want is I want to share my message. So like, what can the new perception and thought be when we understand that, well, what I want is to share my message. It's like, well, I'm actually excited to see, what comes out of me. And it's breaking it down to be able to see the truth and the possibility versus what we were just seeing was our limiting belief. It's like, oh, I can understand that. And this is actually what's really true. Now the difference, Sweetness, is most people, that's like saying an affirmation. Mm-hmm. So if somebody has a weight issue and their new affirmation is, I'm 6-pack abs, but they have 50 pounds to shed, or even 10 pounds or 100 pounds to shed, whatever it is. And they say, I'm 6-pack abs. What do you think is really going on inside? Yeah, the inside's like, bullshit. You are not 6-pack abs. You remember that diet you failed on and that. And so I just did a live on my Facebook page, I think it was like a week ago, on actually how we become conditioned in society, and we become like, programmed, and then how we self-program ourselves, right? So it's like, if I do this, then I'll get that, or then I'll get my love. And what happens is, from this, we continue to live in these same stories and these same examples. So even when we tell ourselves something, our feeling body and center, when we put these ideals on ourselves, it's like, well, if I don't lose that weight, then all of a sudden in the future, it's like, well, you didn't do it before, or you do it and it sets the bar. I only love myself if I'm reaching that state. All of that is against how we're designed to operate. It's actually loving ourselves all the time. So my point being to that is, if you can't believe I'm 6-pack abs, what can you believe? You could believe I'm healthier every day. Can you believe that? Does your body be like, yeah, I can believe that. I got that. So the point is not to go, what am I feeling? Why? Well, what I want. And then just tell yourself some full of shit affirmation that you really can't align to. It's actually to break it down enough to be like, what is really true? Like, so I'll give you a better example of this. When I first decided I was going to do TV as the Body Mind Mentor, and it was like, being called the nutrition fitness expert scared the crap out of me, because I was like, oh, I don't know how to say I'm an expert. I mean, like, I was instantly, the human brain thought someone's gonna be like, well, what schooling did you have, and how many degrees do you have, and how did and then as I saw again, I was like, what am I feeling? I'm feeling scared. I'm afraid I'm gonna, why? I'm afraid I'm gonna be rejected. I'm afraid people are gonna, like, try to prove how I'm not knowledgeable enough, or I don't know enough. And it's like, well, what do I want? What do I really want? I'm like, I want to help people. I want to serve people. You know what? And what is really true is that I'm just here to share what I've learned. So also when I was like, I'm not here to say I'm the world's best nutrition fitness expert. I mean, I do have some guns. Yet, it's like, if I was to say that, that'd be a lie, because there's a million nutrition fitness experts out there. I'm not trying to compare myself to someone else. Comparison is the thief of all joy. What I am claiming is I'm just here to share with you what I've learned. So when I broke it down to that truth, I was like, what I want is I want to just share with people what I've learned, and that's all I'm claiming. So the new thought and perception is, I'm excited to just share what I've learned. And then I could align my message to not saying, hey, you want to shed weight? I'm the best. It was like, hey, you know what? I've been through the journey. I was anorexic and bulimic, and I used to fight my body with sabotage and food. And this is what I've learned to live in health. If you're interested in that, I'm here. Right? And then again, it comes down to what I was saying before, is not even doing any marketing, was just, are you willing to be seen and heard? Are you willing to raise your hand and say, hey, this is who I am, and what I've learned, I'm here to share. And they go, oh, there you are. I've been looking for you. You don't need a fucking website and all these things we tell ourselves we have to have. You just get to own the truth of who you are. So with that new thought and perception, then I'm like, okay, so the last of the fifth step is, what's the action I'm going to take? And how do I make it fun and easy? Because notice the energy. If I say, what's the action I'm going to take? Okay, I'm going to put out this message, but I still have fear energy. I'm just going to force myself to do it. I just planted the seed of fear, and it's only going to grow and become some really shitty ass thing that reflects exactly what I'm afraid of. Yet when I say, how does this get to be fun and easy? Like, okay, cool. I'm excited. I'll do a picture with this, and I'll just like, or I'll turn on some music and I'll dance. And when I feel good and I'm back in that vibration, I take that action and I just created a new program. Like I created a new pathway a new neural pathway. I created a new route, a new way of being. And the more you respond with like, oh, I'm off, I'm not in awesomeness, and wait, I'm worthy of awesomeness. Let me bring myself back to awesomeness. That becomes your norm. So I went from the craziest, shittiest life to little by little and growing through all my triggers and my shadows and seeing where my patterns and my behaviors didn't align to my divinity, taking radical responsibility of that, and then shifting myself to where like awesomeness is my norm. Every single day. You said to me, how's your day? I'm like, awesome. I was just laying out my bikini by the pool before we jumped on here. And like, I'm just hanging out, I have an event in 2 days, bliss, life, joy. There's no stress about the event because I live in that place where it's like, this is just my norm. So there is that taking radical responsibility to allow yourself to utilize the hardship as the feedback of what you're attracting, what you're believing, what you're perceiving, what you're saying, what you're feeling, and choose to align with something different.
I love that. I really see a lot of, that way of being human and that ways of new affirmations.
Yeah.
I think so many people are like, yeah, do affirmations, do this, say, I want this thing that's so far off, and it is hard to align. And I think that also is kind of just puts us back into like, oh yeah, I'm a human. Like I'm a human, you're a human, let's connect. And like, that's all we really want. We don't want to be like, well, I'm this human who has done X, Y, and Z. And that means that like, I'm up here and we're so different, where everyone wants to connect. And I think that like ties really well into what the Global Goddess Fest is like stepping into this authentic leadership, no matter, whatever way you're going to say, I'm a leader, if you're a teacher, or even if you're just a mother, or, being just whoever you are, but being able to really humanize yourself. You don't have to put on this gown and be like, I am a princess, can't you all see? But, really, oh, I'm a badass woman. Here I am.
We all are. That's the thing. When you understand that we all are divine, unique beings, even to judge someone else in a different level of experience would be the lowest level of consciousness. Even to judge yourself and like, well, I used to ... It's like, that was also part of my perfect experience in me allowing my consciousness to have a greater understanding. So I can only honor that, like, so my 2 little boys, it was 8 or 9 years ago. I found out I call my former again, because of positive energy. He's not my ex. It's like, he's a best friend and partner in raising my kids. And it was 8-9 years ago when I found out, he had cheated. My kids were 1 and 4 years old. And I teach my boys every blue moon. Even yesterday, it was funny. He sent me messages. He's like, I am so sorry I ever wronged you. Like every blue moon, he'll also send me these messages like shame. And I'm like, I only have pure love and honor and appreciation. Like I see it as I contracted him to give me these experiences to reflect exactly what I was creating. I used to say, if I'm a perfect mom and perfect wife and I look perfect and I'm perfect, my husband will love me and never cheat on me. I was the one that was speaking it. I was the one that was afraid of it. I'm the one who didn't value myself. So I call that in perfectly. And with my boys, I always teach them how every experience just gives us feedback to have greater. So for us to ever have a judgment on anything, even to say, oh, cheating is bad and wrong, or even, it's like, even to say murder is bad and wrong. Well, we've all squashed a bug. So guess what? We're all murderers. Like we all have the traits within us of every human experience. And if you were raised in a family that's sexually abused and you were sexually abused, chances are you could also be a sexual abuser. So it's like when we can understand the humanity, we find forgiveness. When we can understand the people that we're holding grudges to, it's like, oh, wait, how do I do that too? How am I manipulative? Oh, have you ever manipulated yourself and told yourself a story so you sabotage with food? You are a fucking manipulator, aren't you? Right? Like we are all things. So when we just simply allow and honor each of us to have our journeys and see it as perfect and show up in our humanity, right? It's like, that's actually when we are, what's happening right now, I believe, with so many things happening in the world, is we're really like, we're rebirthing our egos. We're actually in the ascension turbulence of shedding how we've operated as a humanity to see each other as separate. Because if we all actually share an auric field, we all share a collective mind, we all actually have an interdependence of energy, as a highly evolved being, there would never be a judgment or a harm to another person because you see them as you. You're like, you are me, I am you, we are them, they are us. Like anything I'm projecting is always just me pointing a finger, and I see it only because it still exists within me. And you're pointing and judging someone because you haven't owned it within yourself and loved it. So it's just like how people are always like, you're awesome. I'm like, awesome. I know that you're awesome because you obviously see my awesomeness, right? Because I'm just being a mirror for that. So I love that you brought that up, that it's like, there is no guru or thing that's out there to save you. You are the highest frequency. And it's just a matter of giving yourself permission to own the highest frequency that you are. Let the knowingness come from you. And that's why I so strongly believe in showing up authentically, because I'm like, with nothing to hide and nothing to prove, no matter what comes out of me, I know will be perfect because I love myself that much and I just am aligned to that divine truth. And I also know that even if I sat up there and I bumbled or nothing came out, it's like I'm actually giving people permission to do the same. Mm-hmm. And that was actually one of my first experiences when after I decided, I was like, I got the evidence where I'm like, you know what? I just show up and I let it all come through. There was a time, usually, sweetie, I'm walking up and like all of a sudden things start flowing through. I walk up, nothing's coming through for this big, huge event, like 500 to 1,000 people. And it's like, all I heard was, sit down. I'm like, can somebody get me a chair? And I sat down, and then I sat there like 2 minutes. Like, you know how awkward that is for people? Like other people were like, you could feel the energy of the room was like getting extremely nervous, right? And all of a sudden it's like, tell them who you are. And I was like, can I tell you guys who I am? And what came to me was to share, I had written this thing a while ago that was like, I'm Marci Lock, I'm a, divine goddess, da, 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 and like this whole thing about how I operate. And I hadn't done it in like a year, but that's what was coming through. It's like, tell them this. So I start seeing it about, a couple lines, paragraph into it. I start stumbling on it, right? I'm like, what is it? And then you feel the crowd being like, oh, poor girl. Like, oh, she's bombing up there. And I stumbled through it. And then it came out and I was like, because again, I'm in pure curiosity. I'm like, I wonder why this is coming through. I didn't really know that very well. And I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I got the most, I'm starting to channel just this information coming through me of, what was perfect about that? And everyone's like, what? And I'm like, it wasn't perfect. It was perfect because it actually was. It's like, and this whole new understanding just came to me of how this is why I teach and believe we're perfect. There is no such thing as, people always like, oh, it's about progression, not perfection. I'm like, bullshit. You're already perfect. Even if I'm being a bitch mom, I'm doing bitch mom perfectly. If I'm bumbling on stage, I'm doing it perfectly. If I'm in my shit, I'm doing it perfectly. I perfectly attracted it. I'm perfectly experiencing it. And that is what's giving me the understanding and this feedback to know how to have something greater. But to shame ourselves and be like, it's not perfect until my body looks this way, until my money's there, until my relationship is this. You're just putting shame, blame energy on yourself, which is the lowest vibrating energy, which is completely blocking manifesting. But to sit here and be like, oh, I accept that I'm in this experience. It's perfect. Interesting. Now get curious. What is this teaching me? Or what else do I want to create? What else do I want to have? You see how that allows us to create. But we've just been programmed so opposite to be like, oh, it's bad, it's wrong. Get rid of all of that right now. So I love that you shared that and said that. It's like, we're all just being human. This is our journey.
Oh, I love that. And I love that story. I think so many people can relate to that and feel like, okay, what if I mess up? What if, all eyes are on me, and I was just at a conference this weekend and we actually made an agreement as everyone that was there. And we said, okay, if anyone messes up on stage, because we were each going up on stage and sharing stuff, if anyone messes up or stumbles or anything, we're all just going to scream, you're awesome. And it transformed the room. And it was like people were having fun. And it's like, oh, let me just fall on my face. Let me tell you this story that maybe I'm going to like forget parts or, or get really embarrassed about. And it's like, just that makes it even better, even richer, even more raw. And like, again, I don't know why I keep connecting to like movies and TV, but like we want to see these like super raw, extreme things happen. And then we go back into our daily lives and we're like, let's try and put it in this tiny little box. But if we just really let ourselves live and be free and have this rawness, like, that's what we want, right? And so much more fun.
Yeah, and the evidence that I got from that was when I let myself fly. Like even the first time the word fuck wanted to come through me on stage, and I was in Utah, and I was, it was Mormon religious, very religious time. I mean, you don't even wear tank tops, let alone say shit or damn, let alone fuck, And so I remember when the first time I actually suppressed it. And then I got really curious. It's like, why would I suppress that? It was like, oh, because here I have a story about the word that the people are going to think I'm not spiritual, or I'm not, connected to God, or that they're not going to hear my message, or they're going to judge me. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Like, why do I have this story about the word? And then I realized, I'm like, well, maybe that's why God was bringing it through me, to trigger the fuck out of people, to actually, if you lose your shit over a word, who's in control? You're not in control. The word's in control, and who's using it is in control. And when I allowed it to come through me, when the next time it did, I had some of the, these old women that were super religious come up, and they're like, oh, when you first said the fuck word, I was like, oh, and then they're like, and then they heard my message that I was saying they're divinely perfect. And they're like, and I mean, my business catapulted when I just let go of all stories and attachments. So even if you fall on your face, it's like, you fell on your face perfectly to allow the liberation of yourself and others, to go, whoa, let's have fun with this, and let's play with this, and let's do this. That's like, isn't that more important? That's what we're here for. It's like, our journey is the most sacred investment we could ever have. So why would we block or mask or hold ourselves back from that free liberation? Because the reason we are here is to fully discover and fully express our own divinity. That's it. And by doing that, you're like, ooh, what would feel good? What am I called to do? What makes me happy? You're discovering yourself, and then you're unleashing that expression. And that's the greatest gift we can give anybody.
It sure is. I want more of it, more. Well, thank you so much. This was an incredible time having you on here. And I think, this message of being perfectly imperfect, and just loving every minute of that, and fully expressed, fully raw in your being. So thank you so much for sharing some of your stories and your experiences, and your self-growth, and how you can be an inspiration for me and the other viewers that are watching.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I love being a reflection of awesomeness, because we are all awesome. So I appreciate that you're standing in your truth, and you're doing this as well, and creating this way to deliver more purpose and truth to others as well.
Thank you. Yeah. And then let's definitely, we'll provide to all the viewers those free recordings and tapes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think many people will love to hear those. So thank you so much.
Of course.
Awesome. We'll see you all next time.
Bye, guys.